Man, it's interesting morning this morning. I did some traveling last night and I woke up with I've got what is in my eyeballs? On my eyeballs, not in my eyeballs, like on my lashes. Anyway, it was really weird. I did some traveling. Hard traveling, like I haven't done that kind of traveling in a while. I don't think it's supposed to rain today. But I woke up with some knowledge. But I also want to say this, that I have hardcore over the last few days been thinking about, really this week, not the last few days, this whole week, the meaning of life. The meaning of life. And that old song from Faith Hill has popped into my head repeatedly, where she says, "The secret of life is nothing at all." And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, like, it is something that I have struggled with since I was 19, since I died, is trying to figure out, why the fuck am I here? Why the fuck am I here? I'm happy when I have a problem to solve, because then it allows me to not think about, why the fuck am I here? Because there's no answer to why the fuck are you here. There really isn't, if you think about it. And that's horrifying and freeing at the same time. There really isn't. There is no rhyme or reason of why you were born. And yet, at the same time, there's a purpose to why you were born. There's no rhyme or reason to what you do in life. And then at the same time, there is. I say there's no rhyme or reason because at any moment, you can change and shift your reality into anything you want. If you are alone and you decide, I don't want to be alone, there are so many lonely people out there. You can have a ready-made family in a heartbeat. I don't care who you are. You can. You just have to try. You just have to open up to meeting people. And you just have to be willing to possibly settle. Not possibly. You have to be willing to settle. Settle down. If you are attached, you can do the opposite. You just have to be ready to give up things. If you're in a certain job, you decide you no longer want to be in that job, you can change it. If you live in a certain place and you decide you no longer want to live there, you can change that. You can change anything with your life at any time. Period. And sometimes you'll call it, well, fate gave me this crisis of faith of why I'm where I'm at, and that I needed to change. Fate put me in front of this person or that person to put this family together, or fate put me in front of this or that to make me realize I wasn't happy in my marriage, or fate this, fate that, destiny this, destiny that. But at the same time, it's free will. So I've been thinking a ton about the meaning of life and realizing in a weird way, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, to be completely 100% honest with you, I am not sure how I feel about it yet. Everybody's meaning of life is different than everybody else's. The meaning of life for me is also, let's just talk about, we'll just say, you just use, that as an example. The meaning of life for me is also going to change and shift repeatedly throughout my life. It has. And I want you to think about your life. Just think for just a minute. How many lifetimes have you lived in the life you're in right now? I can count like 4 or 5 distinct lifetimes. Like your lifetime as a kid is one thing, right? And chances are you had 2 or 3 lifetimes in that. 2 or 3 lives. I know I had 2 different ones growing up. And then I was a writer for a long time. And I've been getting the itch to do that again. I liked it. I liked creating. I liked creating worlds. And that led me into being a professional gamer, working with the gaming industry, gaming developers, which led me into a second life. Well, actually, I guess that would be a third if I had 2 as a kid. And then I was a writer. And then I was a professional gamer. And now I'm a professional content creator. I'm a shaman. And I'm going to go ahead and own that word. I let people bother me with it a long time ago. And because I let that happen, wasn't this little shithead's fault. I let that happen. She said the words, I believed them. Knowing better, I believed them. So I've been working to own that word again. And some people will say, well, it was fate that you stepped into this role. Everything kept bringing you back to the way you were raised. Everything kept bringing you back to this and this and this. Yeah. But it was my free will that decided to embrace it. And then, on top of those main lives that we live, there's a whole other existence, a personal existence. I mean, I raised 4 kids. 2 of them weren't mine. I raised 4 kids. I have a son, I have a daughter, I have 2 stepsons. You have a personal aspect of your life as well. So at any given time, your meaning of life is going to change and shift because it's going to mean something different at any point in your life. And I want you to just think about that for a moment. Because for the last couple weeks, it's been bothering me. This last week, I've been thinking about it hardcore. And what's even funnier, my youngest and I have always been on a wavelength. Always been on a wavelength together. One time she asked me, when I was going through a divorce with her dad, and things were really, really bad, and she was really struggling, and she was having a hard time, and she asked me what the point of being alive was. And I didn't want to look my kid in the face and tell her I had no fucking idea, because I don't. I didn't want to look my kid in the face and tell her that when I was younger, I had a whole bunch of friends commit suicide, and I even thought about it as well. Got really close to trying. And my mom came home early and saw what I was doing. Caught me, basically. Saw all the notes I had written. And she got me help. But then I did die. That's the funny here. I thought I wanted to. I thought I wanted to because I wasn't really taught, and we really don't teach our kids how to grieve. Like, we really don't. Unfortunately, mine had to learn how to grieve a lot. Poor Brody especially had to learn how to grieve a lot. But I wasn't really ever taught how to grieve. I was taught to be very logical with your emotions, almost like a fucking Vulcan from Star Trek. Very logical with your emotions. And you know, I'm not complaining about that, because it has made it to where when really horrible things happen, I'm able to be the strong one for a little bit, you know? I'm dropping shit all over the place. I'm able to be the strong one, which is great. I had the hiccups, and it sucks at the same time. Because sometimes you want to be the one to just break down and scream and cry. You want to be that one. Why can't you have that turn? Well, you can't, because you're the strong one. That's beside the point. I thought that I wanted to die. I thought that I wanted to go and be with my friends. Be with my best friend. I didn't want to be here anymore, because what's the point? When I was in high school, in the 3 years that I was in high school, we had 12 kids die. 12. And 2 teachers. The vast majority by suicide. My best friend, I lost to cancer. A couple of kids we lost to car accidents. And I thought, I didn't want to be here anymore. Look how easy it was for them to just check out. Right? Look how easy that was. They just checked right the fuck out, right? And then I got to go to counseling and talked to a therapist for a while, and I'm actually really grateful for that. I really and truly am. Because to be honest, if I hadn't gone through that counseling when I was a junior in high school, I don't know how I would have handled my senior year of high school, because that's when I lost my best friend. Like, we kind of knew it was coming. She had had surgeries and treatments and everything since she was, oh my God, she got diagnosed. We were in 9th grade. So 4 years. 3 years. 3 years. I wouldn't have known how to handle that. And to be honest, I'm not sure I still did know how to handle it. I spent a lot of time alone. And I was lucky that I had a lot of friends that knew where my alone spots were. And they knew me well enough to know when I really wanted to be alone and when I didn't need to be alone. But her passing away is when I learned that people don't give a fuck. People don't give a fuck. They don't. And the way I learned that was because of a band teacher, Mr. Thompson. My senior year of high school was his first year teaching there. Before that, we had a band director named Mr. Osborne, who was really strict but really good. And he retired. We got this new band director. I was a huge band nerd. I'm getting off tangent, it seems, but there's a reason. I was a huge band nerd. I played the trumpet since 6th grade. For my 16th birthday, I did not ask for a car. I asked for a specific silver Yamaha trumpet. And because my mother's side of the family, my grandmother's side, there's a lot of musical talent in it. One of my great uncles was part of Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys, Slim Rutland. And they owned a massive music store in Valdosta, Georgia. Guess what I got for my 16th birthday? This silver trumpet. Hell, I even tried out for the Army and the Marine Corps band. That's how much of a band nerd I was. And I also, while I wasn't a straight A valedictorian, I didn't have F's. So when my best friend died, I had never missed a football game. I had never missed a concert. Ever. But her wake and her funeral were important to me. And it was in September, right during the height of football season. And I missed a football game. And then I missed a contest the next day. And so the person that was the backup had to do my solo. And guess what? That new band director got so mad at me. So mad at me. That I got yelled at in the middle of fucking class on Monday. And every kid in that class, well, not everyone, but most of the ones that were my age, they knew that I had just lost my best friend. I had watched my best friend just wither away and die. And it gave me such a perspective in high school. Because I had other friends that were getting into speed, like drugs. And I remember, because I was in band and worked and all this other stuff, I would take the fucking mini thins from the gas station. I'm sure everybody did back in the fucking 90s. And I'm not gonna lie, I was on the verge of probably trying the other stuff, right? And one day, Christy came and had lunch with me. She didn't come to school anymore because she couldn't swallow. She had a port in her stomach. She had a port in her chest. They had nicked one of the nerves in the back of her neck. So she had to eat through a fucking hole in her stomach. Well, she had finally gotten that nerve to work, and she wanted to come and have lunch with me one day. And so she came and had lunch, and we were sitting at Mazzio's. And all these people that I used to hang out with were in the parking lot across the street. And they were smoking and, you know, whatever. And she looked out the window so longingly, and this is burned into my brain. She said, I wish I could go do drugs. And I laughed because I was like, what the fuck? Because when you hear something like that, even if you're on the verge of doing said drugs, when I heard that, I was like, what the fuck, dude? She said, no, really. I wish that I knew that my brain was solid enough where I could go try that shit before I die. I wish that my brain was healthy enough that I could go and try all of that shit just before I die. So I could just see what it's like. And then literally the next sentence she said, I also wish that they knew how much I wish that I had a healthy brain. And I knew I was going to live to be 30. Because, you know, when you're 17, 30 is old. I wish I had a healthy brain. That I would know I'm going to live to be 30. And she said, I wonder if they know how much they're fucking their brain up by doing that shit. And I never did anything ever again. Ever. I think she 100% saved me from going down a path. I never touched another mini thin. I never ever hung out with those kids again. Ever. This band director on Monday morning screamed at me in class because I missed a fucking high school football game performance. That was more important than my best friend's wake. The last time I was ever going to get to see my best friend's face. Because she had a closed casket the next day. And he screamed at me about missing this contest. And basically insinuated that it was my fault that we didn't place higher. Because I wasn't there for that solo. And then he insinuated that the kid he had chosen to take the solo over when I wasn't there, the backup, just in case, who was a phenomenal trumpet player, that it was kind of his fault too. He blamed a poor performance rating on me. And I don't cry. I will never ever let a motherfucker that is trying to get one over on me see me fucking cry. I will be damned to every pit of hell before I let you know you've upset me. So I sat there, and you could have heard a pin drop in that band room, because almost every kid in there knew why I had not been at that game and why I had not been at that contest. Even some of the freshmen that didn't even go to our high school yet knew. Because when a kid dies in high school, everybody knows. Doesn't matter if you knew that person or not, you know that that kid died, right? You could have heard every pin in the world drop in that room. So I sat there and took that. Then when he was done, I stood up and I took my trumpet. I went to the back of the room and I put my trumpet in the case and I took it out to my car. I came back to school. The guy left. I went home. My mom called because the school called her. And I told my mom what happened. My mom sat there on the phone because my mom, when she was in high school, lost her 10-year-old brother to brain tumor. So me losing my friend brought back a lot of memories for my mom. My mom said, okay, sweetie, we'll deal with it on Monday. We'll deal with it tomorrow, I mean. So the next day, I didn't go to band. We went up, talked to the principal. Principal apologized profusely, offered his condolences, all those things. I went back to band on Wednesday. And I played in band, getting moved from the top of the seats, you know, and if you're not a band nerd, the way that they assign you things is chairs, right? First chair, second chair, third chair, blah, blah, blah. I got moved from first, second chair. And the reason I say that is because the kid that had the other solo with me, we ran back and forth for first chair, right? I got moved down to last chair as punishment. As punishment. And at this time, I had to quit fucking crying like a bitch. At this time, I was also taking private lessons because my goal was to go to college for band, right? I mean, it runs in my fucking family. My grandpa's father, Homer, used to build fiddles. He used to hand make fiddles. He had a barber shop. And he would also service fiddles out of there. So my grandparents were super proud that I, you know, had gotten some musical talent. And I'm not going to lie, I was really good. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was shit. But when I look back now and I see all the awards and stuff like that, I was good. So my whole goal was to go to college, do what I loved professionally, maybe join a symphony or something, travel the world. So my grandparents paid for me to have private lessons. And the person that was teaching me private lessons was the director at Tulsa University. And he wasn't the band director. He was one of the guys that was over the brass section, things like that. He also was a pretty well-known jazz musician around Tulsa. He played with the Tulsa Jazz. In fact, I'm pretty sure he was one of the founding members. The man was phenomenal on the trumpet. And he was really kind, and he didn't take on a lot of students, and he decided to take me as a student. At 17 and 18, no, 17, because I didn't turn 18 till January. At 17 years old, I was playing with professional adult jazz groups. I was allowed to sit in with the Tulsa Jazz and play. sit in. So I went back to band, and I played until the winter concert. And at the winter concert, I had another solo because we had blind. The only reason I got this solo is because we had blind auditions where the band director cannot see who's coming in. Because at this point, the other band directors, like the assistant band directors, they had seen what he was doing. And it wasn't just to me, it was to another couple of people too. So they had seen what he was doing. So they were like, let's do blind auditions. So I got a solo. And he was pissed. But he had to give it to me. Because he had already drawn the number in class in front of everybody. And I wish y'all could have seen the look on his face when I stood up with that number. And he checked my number twice before he agreed that it was my number. And one of the assistant band directors that I didn't like, I suddenly liked him because I saw him grin from the back of the room. So concert comes. My grandparents come to the concert. Mr. Center, who was my private instructor, comes to the concert. And my band director knows who Mr. Center is. And he is schmoozing this guy. Like, my band director is fangirling over my private tutor. And at this time, by Christmas, it's less than a month to my birthday. Less than a month till I turn 18. And I was already working on and had been lightly offered, like, you know, pending graduation, obviously, full ride scholarships to 4 colleges for band. Full ride scholarships. And this concert, I'm watching this band director who hates me fangirl over my private tutor. And my grandparents overheard this next part and told me what happened. Mr. Center said, well, which one of these trumpet players do you think is really good that I should look at? He looks over and he says, well, you know, I'm not really sure we have anybody that's good enough to go to TU. When both me and the kid that was first chair or second chair, you know, where we went back and forth, both of us had won tons of awards, tons of medals, all state, all district, all of those things. And Mr. Center said, really? He said, well, he pointed to the boy. He said, well, what about him? You know, I've heard he's gotten a lot of awards. And he said, yeah, he has, but his parents know somebody. His parents didn't know nobody. He said, oh, okay. He said, well, what about the young lady right there? The redhead. And my band director proceeded to trash me about how I wasn't dedicated, about how I let friends get in the way of my band career. I mean, he trashed me to my tutor, who already knew everything that had happened. Mr. Center stood there for a minute. He said, okay. And he said, so you wouldn't recommend that I work with either one of those students? And Mr. Thompson said, absolutely not. And he said, well, not her. Mr. Center stood there for a minute and then full on looked this director in the face. And I remember the moment I didn't hear the conversation, but I was putting my horn up. It was after the thing, and I remember seeing Mr. Center standing over there with his arms crossed like this, and he was a humongous guy. And I remember the look on his face. And he kind of looked at me and then was side-eyeing the band director. So at first I thought I was in trouble, right? But when he side-eyed the band director, I knew I wasn't. But my grandparents were standing behind back there listening, and because they didn't like the band director either. Mr. Center proceeded to tell Mr. Thompson that I had been studying under him for a while, like 6 months at this point, and that he felt that I was a phenomenal trumpet player and would make an amazing professional musician, that I had the drive and the passion and the goals to do so, and that Mr. Thompson didn't know his head from a hole in the fucking ground or his own ass. And Mr. Thompson got so red and he stomped off, and and Mr. Center told me I was wasting my time in that band, but to continue to go, because if I didn't, I wouldn't get into college with a full ride scholarship to band. But in that moment, what I heard was, this motherfucker is going to make sure that you don't get a scholarship, because he insinuated that too. And at the time, I didn't know how that worked. So after that concert, I took my trumpet home and I never went back to band. I continued to study with Mr. Center. He was pissed that I wasn't going to band. He was pissed that I let myself get an F. And he had every right to be mad at me. But he understood as well. That was the beauty of this teacher. He understood why I was doing what I was doing. Like, this band director humiliated me because my best friend died from a brain tumor. Still think he's a piece of shit. Will always think that man's a piece of shit. So when I turned 18, I didn't tell anybody I was doing this. When I turned 18, I went and enlisted in the military. I was upset because my parents went out of town on my birthday. And I talked to my grandpa, who was at Pearl Harbor, who was at Okinawa, Lady Gulf, a ton of really famous World War II naval battles. Told him what I was gonna do. And he said, "Kiddo, I'm not gonna stop you, but I wish you would think about it a little bit before you sign those papers." I'm shaking. I said, "I did think about it. I have thought about it. This is what I'm doing." He said, "Okay, then I'll support you." And I went and joined the military. When my parents got home, they were pissed. My mom was pissed. And I lived with my grandparents till I graduated high school. So how many of you guys would say that's destiny? That I wasn't supposed to be a famous trumpet player. I wasn't supposed to be in a symphony in Prague. Why do I have blue on me? I wasn't supposed to be in a symphony in Prague. I wasn't supposed to be traveling the world. You know? Because I didn't go into the military for band. Oh no, I decided at the last minute I was going to be an MP. one of the most hated jobs in the military. And as a 5'4", 102-pound woman, the hardest thing I could have chosen. So how many of you would say that was destiny? How many of you would say it was free will that fucked up my destiny? How many of you would look at me now and say, free will helped you get to your destiny now? And then my answer is going to be, I believe that we all have multiple destinies in every life that we can choose to fulfill or not fulfill. I don't feel like there's a meaning to life at all. And I don't know whether to think that's a sad thing or not. And here's why I don't know whether I should think that is a sad thing or not, because I don't feel like there's a meaning to life. I feel like we make our own meaning. I feel like we make our own meaning. The more I travel, the more I learn, the more I see, the more I experience, the more I read, the more I think. I think back about fucking dying. I really do. I wanted to die for a while. And then I did. And I have had a hard time fitting in ever since. I have never felt like I belonged anywhere since I died. Ever. Even with my grandparents, who I was the oldest grandkid, probably the favorite. They helped raise me. And I'm not saying the favorite, like I was a favorite. I'm not saying it that way. I'm just saying like they spent the most time with me. Like it's hard to not have your oldest kid, grandkid be kind of the favorite, because you spend more time with that kid than any other kid you have. And it's not that you like that kid more than that kid. It's that you know that kid more than any other of your kids. I learned a lot from my grandparents. I learned a lot. My grandparents, my mom's parents, lost their oldest son in a car accident when he was 18. And then 6 months later, they lost their youngest son to brain cancer. And that broke my grandmother. Having kids now, even before I had kids, I could understand how that would break anybody. And now having kids, I can't fathom that. I can't fathom losing a child, much less losing two, much less losing two in 6 months. Look how my eyes changed shape with that. So my grandma and I had a lot of talks, and when I lost my best friend, my grandparents helped me through that tremendously. And then this one's way thicker than that one. Is great. My grandparents helped me through that tremendously. Like, I think they were kind of the only reason I made it through some stuff. So then how many of you would say that it was fate that my grandparents lost their boys so they could help me through whatever I was going through, so I could have the children I have or whatever. How many of you guys would say that? Because I would look at it that way too. And knowing how my best friend touched my life when she passed away and when she was alive, I would look at my Uncle David, who passed away when he was 10, 11 years old, as imprinting life, imprinting things onto his friends, because I know that he has friends that have children named after him. I have a cousin named after him. You know what I mean? I have a weird little black speck on my face and I can't get it off. There we go. I have fucked up my eyeliner 9 ways to Sunday right now. And it is what it is. And I look like crazy town. There's no meaning to life. There isn't. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care who you worship. I don't care about any of that. There is no meaning to life. There is no going up on the top of the mountain and talking to the guru, and the guru saying the meaning of life is blah, blah, blah. Because you know what? The meaning of life for me is not the meaning of life for you. Because the meaning of life for me has become learning everything I can before I die again. That's it. Before I die again. And I used to feel like I couldn't wait to die again. Because it didn't hurt. The meningitis hurt. Please don't think that it didn't, okay? Please get your kids vaccinated against the meningitis stuff. Wow, my eyes look crazy. But that hurt. That hurt. But the dying didn't hurt. Seriously. You didn't feel, I didn't feel shit. But there is no meaning to life aside from what you assign it. It doesn't matter if you do something that goes in a history book. Do you want to know why? Because even though, let's just look at George Washington. Even though we all know who George Washington is, who he was, how many of y'all miss him? How many of y'all want to be exactly like him? How many of y'all use him as a model for your life? Nobody. Because he was alive centuries ago in a time when things were so different that we as modern people can't fathom. We can't fathom that. You know who he is. You learn about him in history books. You learn about him throughout multiple classes in your school lifetime. But does it matter? The key to having a good eyeliner along your waterline is to let it dry before you let your eye go. Especially with this, because it'll stay on. This NYX Epic Wear will stay on. I'm just saying. So, You hear about King Solomon. You hear about Ramses the Great. You hear about Queen Elizabeth. You hear about Benjamin Franklin. You hear about Steve Jobs. You hear about all these historical figures. I threw a couple of more modern ones in there for a reason, because in a few centuries, it won't matter. There'll be a name in a history book. There'll be a name on a few patents. There'll be a name of, some elementary school, high school. But everybody that loved them will be gone. Everybody that loved them. I have some micellar water somewhere. You'd think I would get that out. Everybody that cared about them will be gone. So why does it matter? The meaning of life for me has changed repeatedly throughout my life, and will change repeatedly throughout my life. And I started this whole rambling, getting ready with me thing for two reasons. One, because I haven't done one in a while, and I felt like this information, what I woke up with this morning, wasn't just something I needed to hear, but somebody out there needs to hear it. And two, when I'm gone, I hope some young philosophy student hears this, laughs at me fucking up my makeup a little bit, and says, that makes 100% sense to me. That there is no meaning to life. Because there isn't. Some people are going to say, oh, well, the meaning of life is, to do everything you can to make the world a better place. The meaning of life is for you to procreate. The meaning of life is for you to make things better for other people. The meaning of life is blah, blah, blah. But is it? What do you owe other people? And I know that's a very cynical way of looking at things, but I want you to seriously answer that. What do you owe other people? If you are a soul, a spirit, here to accomplish certain things before you go on, you accomplish those things for you, for your soul. It's something your soul has to accomplish while you're here. Then what do you actually owe anyone else in the world? Do you see what I'm saying? What do you owe that person? I bet you don't have an answer for that, do you? You want to know why? There isn't one. There isn't one. There is not an answer. And I'm sure some of you listening to this are going to say, well, but, making the world a better place and moving forward and blah, 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 blah. Okay. And maybe that is your soul's lot in life, to move things forward. But that still brings me back to my original question. Who do you owe that to? Who do you owe that to? No one. You don't owe it to fucking anyone. No one. You really don't. The meaning of life is to get the annoying things out of your eye. The meaning of life is for you to find meaning in this life. And if you find that meaning with a person, if you find that meaning in traveling, if you find that meaning with a job, if you find that meaning helping other people, it doesn't matter. If you find that meaning for you, then I would say you have succeeded. I would say you win. You've won this round of life, because you're just going to get to do it all again another time. Do you see what I'm saying? You won this time. But it's like an evil supervillain. I'll be back. Some people are going to tell you that the meaning of life is just to be happy. And I partially agree with that. The reason I don't agree with that is that some people are never happy. Some people are never satisfied. Some people are always going to long for something else, something that they don't even know what the fuck they're longing for, that they don't know. They're never going to be happy, and they're never going to be satisfied. And I understand that on a deep level, because that's me. Because that's me. There are so many people, I'm looking for something specific and now I can't find it. There are so many people that are going to tell you that the meaning of life is what you make of it. And I agree with them. But the whole point of this is that when I traveled last night in my sleep, I learned some things I needed to learn for me. And I'm not going to share those because they're my personal things that I needed to learn for me. But I realized that I've been chasing a meaning that doesn't exist. It's like if Indiana Jones were to be chasing the Holy Grail, to find out it never existed in the first place. I've been spending all this time lately chasing a meaning for something. And to be honest, I didn't even really know what. Chasing a meaning for something when there isn't one. There isn't even a question. So my advice is going to be this. Stop chasing meaning. Stop chasing meaning. Enjoy being hedonistic every now and then. Enjoy being selfless every now and then. Enjoy fixing the world every now and then. Enjoy creating life every now and then. Stop chasing meaning. When you die, anything that ever meant anything is going to be shown to you. The time you sat out in the garden when you were 8 and had a butterfly land on your finger and you just sat there with that butterfly for a minute, that was a meaningful experience. You're going to see that again. The time your first child was born, you're going to see that again. The time you stubbed your toe and you were late to work and you missed being in the middle of a car accident that you didn't know anything about, you're going to see that. So stop chasing meaning. Be the meat sack right now that you are. Enjoy all the failings of that meat sack. Because we all, as we get older, have failings in our meat sack. Whether it's a chronic illness, whether it's an accident, whether it's just, we just randomly get arthritis. Well, not randomly. I think we all probably get arthritis as we get older. Stop chasing meaning. I promise you'll let go of so much that you've been stressing about when you stop chasing.